one here for my kinfolk. Don't talk too much, stay hush with the info. This one here for my kinfolk. Don't talk too much, stay hush with the info. I break bread only with a few. I break bread only with a few. I'm a product of a city where the money don't sleep. 4-7. Get bread, get cheese, my feet don't move if the money don't speak. Throw the peace, keep the cold, keep the cold, keep the cold in the street. Everybody gotta eat, this is what it sound like when big chops on the beat. Big chops with the heat, hot pans on the flame, turn up to the speech. Word up when I speak, pull up to the show about 25 deep. God bless the whole team. I break bread only with a few.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival live stream. My name is Tyler Wan. I'm a programming volunteer here at PATH, and today I'll be moderating our live Q&A for our shorts program, Defining Ourselves, Defining Each Other. We'll be taking questions throughout this Q&A, so make sure you put those in the comment section. So with that, I'm going to ask our filmmakers to introduce themselves, and we'll start with, why don't you say your name, pronouns, what film you're a part of, and the role that you played in that film. So we'll start with Jimmy.
Hey, I'm Jimmy. I directed Malcolm.
Okay, awesome. And we can move to Chris. You want to go next?
Hey, I'm Chris Lowe. I'm the director of Black Ghost Sun.
Tiffany? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, the producer of Black Ghost Sun.
Sorry, could you say that again, Tiffany?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out for a second.
Okay, yes. Oh, yes, I'm Tiffany. I'm the producer of Black Ghost Sun.
Great. And Jang-il?
Hi, I'm Jang-il Park, director of Muito Prazer, and he is?
Yusa Takashi Yusaku, and assistant director in Muito Prazer.
Awesome, thank you. So I'd like to start off just by asking how each of you came to find the stories for your films. How you approach those, and again, we can go back to Jimmy to start.
Yeah, the story actually came from the writer. The writer and I, we met through mutual acquaintances, and he had a very similar experience, and we both kind of stemmed from this feeling that we had growing up in North America. We're Asians living in North America, so we felt like this sort of like distance between us and like different cultures, and we noticed there was a huge difference in that. So when he wrote the story, he pulled on a lot of his previous experiences being in a relationship with another race as well, and that's kind of how the story kind of came to be.
Awesome. Chris and Tiffany?
The story is actually based on my cousin's life. So he's Chinese American, and his son is Black, and he's a single father. So it really just spawned from that, and talking to my cousin and learning about his life and wanting to tell sort of his story or a story based on his life and that experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was introduced to Chris through a mutual friend. We actually went to NYU together, so we run in the same circles. And I heard about the story, and I thought it was awesome and very timely. So that's, I was happy to produce it with Chris.
Jang-il, would you like to go?
Yes. About a few years ago, I got a job. It's about to teach how to shoot the camera to students of Japanese Brazilians. But in that time, I didn't know a lot of Japanese Brazilian in Japan. So I was so surprised because I got same feeling about their situation. I was born in Japan, but I'm Korean. I can't speak Korean. I it's yeah. I feel like to them. Yes.
Hmm. Right. And that sort of, yeah, great. And that sort of goes into my next question, which is, you know, we we chose to have these shorts together in our program because they all touch on race and identity and how those how different races and identities can affect one another. So I like each of you like to ask each of you how your own experiences with race and identity affected how you approached this film and what you sort of wanted to bring to this film from your own experiences. And I guess, Chris, would you like to go? Or Tiffany?
Sure. I mean, well, I'm only speaking for myself here, but I grew up in a Caribbean, predominantly Black neighborhood. Um, at the time, very few to no Asians that I knew of lived in the neighborhood, and it just made me really aware of the sort of racial dynamics between the two ethnic groups and the presence of sort of anti-Blackness within the Asian community and anti-Asianness within the Black community. And it's a very complex relationship. At the same time, my best friends growing up were Black. And, you know, as I grew older, I don't know, it was sort of something that's always been very present in my mind. And the film is sort of an extension of that, exploring those themes and that relationship, particularly within New York. Yeah. Tiff, do you think? I'm curious about your take on it.
Yeah, so I think what really drew me to this story was how the main character was realizing how life was going to be different for his son than it was for him. And through that, you can highlight to a bigger audience in a more digestible way, you know, how people of color can be treated in some of these communities. And so that's really what drew me to it, because it could help shed a light on things that aren't like always talked about. Well, this year they've been talked about some more for some because of all that's going on. But and that's why I applaud Chris for coming up with this story, because he thought about doing that even before all the George Floyd and all these things came to the big media attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jimmy, would you like to go?
Yeah, I grew up in Toronto, which is a very, very diverse place. We have friends of all different races, and we're all kind of conglomerate, and we all just kind of mix and mingle. Like, it's very beautiful here. And I think the one thing that I felt the most when I read the script was like there was this essence of love between everyone. And I think it was something that I found when I watched all of these films as well, is that there was that sort of that message that came across. I was like, it's okay to just like love each other, even though our skins and our cultures are different. There are many things that we can find very similar to each other. And I think that's what kind of attracted me the most and helped us like shape this piece. I didn't want it to feel very like angry and hate and a lot of like resentment, because there's a lot of that in the world right now. I wanted to make something that like really talked about those pieces and tackled those challenges, but brought it in a light that was brighter, which talked about love and talked about family, talked about relationship, talked about being there for another person, and how, another person's background, although they're different, we can find very similar things that we can relate on and be on the same page. And in many ways also be in love in the same ways too. So yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned growing up in Toronto, and one thing is half of our shorts in this program actually aren't based in the US. So for our predominantly US audience, could you speak on how what you feel, say, like the Asian Canadian experience is like, what can be learned from that versus in the US, what the US can learn from that, or what you can gain from the US?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's hard for me to talk about because at the same time I kind of feel very spoiled. I experienced what a lot of I think people are experiencing in the States when I move out of the suburbs into the primarily white areas in Ontario and Canada. That's when I start to feel that energy and yeah, I think for us it's just about like understanding. Like at the end of the day, we're all people, right? And like you and I, all of us here can have a conversation, even if you're halfway across the world. If Yusaka and Jengyo are all the way in Japan, we can still talk because we all speak on the same level of emotion and feeling. And as long as we can get a point across, it doesn't matter. It surpasses all culture, all barriers, all skin, etc. And I think that understanding of that, and when you've experienced that, and when you begin to experience that like throughout life, I think that helps us, gives us that knowledge, and it helps inform the decisions that we make, and we become more inclusive naturally because of that.
Great. Yeah, totally agree. So for Yusaku and Jengyo, what do you think people in America can learn from the race, the different identities and relationships that you portray in your film? I'm sure a lot of people still don't know about Korean Japanese or Brazilian Japanese. So what would you like people to know?
I didn't expect our movie can see in the United States. So I really appreciate your this なんだろうそうだな、なんていうのかな。Maybe in the United States, a lot of racial people, so sorry about that. Yes.
Oh, no worries.
I'm gonna type. Sorry.
Yeah. And if you like, I can come back as you think of an answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. So my next question is, we know that filmmaking is such a long process and there's a lot of learning to be done. So were there views that you had challenged while making your films, and things that you learned that you didn't realize before? And Chris and Tiffany, we can start with you.
I'm not sure if it was expressed in the short, but just working things out in the script and being increasingly sensitive and aware and cognizant of the way I want to portray these characters, because you can get into some very easily messy situations when you're not paying careful attention to how you portray these people. You don't want to reinforce stereotypes or tropes. And if you do happen to present them, you want to humanize them, and you don't want them to just be one-dimensional characters. So I think for me, it was becoming hyper aware of how to incorporate truth without coloring it, so to speak, in a negative light, or because in the film we tackle such sensitive topics like inherited prejudice and stuff, and how do we cope with it? How do we deal with it? I mean, I don't think we offer any answers, but I think we just want to bring awareness about those topics out, and yeah.
And then from my perspective, I don't think I didn't have to go as deep into that as Chris would have had to, because he was writing it and everything. But from a production standpoint, like producing it, I didn't really face any major challenges along the way. So it was actually a pretty easy project to produce.
And sorry. Well, it looks like we have a question from the chat that we'd like. So Sunny asks, how did you work with other communities featured and not featured in your films to create your films? what do you hope we can learn from Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities and in communities from the Global South about identity and engaging with other identities? So I'm gonna give the Muito Prazer team time to digest that question. But Jimmy, would you like to start?
Yeah, totally. I think this kind of connects to like what I was going to say about the previous question too, in the sense that like one of the main things that I wanted to make sure that happened in this film is that when we casted and when we did the production call and we put all of our crew together, I wanted to make sure that it was a diverse crew, primarily diverse, and I think that was one of the main points in everything, was that like in order to tell authentic and genuine stories about all these different cultures, you have to have those people part of the project very closely. So we all have to be on the same page. Like our producer was Black, the writer and I were Asians, just like the main roles in our film. So we knew that we wouldn't be we really wanted to pay attention to make sure that we were paying respect and homage to like what has happened from other perspectives as well and our own, and not to cross any lines that are kind of, you know, like Chris was saying, you know, fall into any stereotypes or do any tropes. We didn't want to do any of that. Yeah, so I think on set we learned a lot of just about like how other people were experiencing the things that we were experiencing too. Yeah, even like we had a lot of conversations about film in the film industry while we were on set, about how they felt, you know, like walking into a room. I've done it many times where, you know, you go into a pitch and you're pitching for a big commercial, and you know everyone there's white. It's a male white guy, and you're like the one person of color in the room. How does that feel? What do you do? You know, how do you act in those situations? What if they say something insensitive? And I think like we were able to relate a lot on set and just like empathize and sympathize with each other. And it kind of showed me that like there is a community of people out there that are doing what we're doing. And like Chris, like Tiffany, like Yusaku and Jengyo, like Tyler, like everyone here, we're all working in film. We're all people of color. And I think that's really freaking awesome. And I think like the more that we do this and the more that we shoot and the more that we create, other people are going to see that, and hopefully the younger generations are going to be like, hey, like maybe I could do that too. Yeah.
That's an awesome answer. Chris and Tiffany? Do you need to be reminded of the question?
No.
No? Okay.
I think the key thing is just coming at everything from a point of empathy and understanding each other, and being able to see through each other's eyes, so to speak. You know, one of my goals with Black Ghost Sun was to raise awareness about different types of racism that exist. For example, in the film, we present anti-Blackness from an Asian perspective and how prevalent that is in Asian communities, particularly specifically the Chinese American or the Chinese community in New York. And it really plays into a lot of the interactions that people have in the city, and beliefs that both ethnic groups have about each other. It's not always, racism isn't always just in the context of black and white, or, you know, Chinese and white, or any person of color. There are forms of interracial racism between the ethnic groups, and we should be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah, I think that was great. I don't have anything to add to that.
All right, perfect. This is a very director-producer relationship that we're seeing right here. So I'll go back to the Muito Prazer team, and I'll rephrase my earlier question. So what do you hope people can learn from your film?
Yes. In Japan, some of people doesn't know about Japanese Korean, Japanese Brazilian. So I wanted to know them about a lot of racist people exist in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so spreading that awareness.
Yes. Most of Japanese doesn't care about the foreign people,
Mm-hmm.
but we exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we actually have another audience question for you that we'll pull up right now. Waiting for that question. Okay, so Yang Ji asked for Muito and Jengil, has your film shown in Japan too? Would love to
No,
hear the response there, especially from Korean Japanese or Brazilian Japanese communities.
not yet. I'm trying to show in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and I send a movie to a lot of competitions.
Mm-hmm.
We already won 3 competitions in Japan.
Wow.
So I
So
have
it's
more.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And
Awesome.
I played our movie in the theater.
Yeah.
That's my dream. Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then I'll ask a similar question. So what has the reaction been like from the communities that are portrayed in your respective films? And I guess I'll ask Chris and Tiffany first.
I think the response has been quite strong. Specifically from the New York community and anybody that happens to be biracial or have these sort of multiracial families. I don't think it's something that is really tackled very often or often enough, I imagine, particularly in Asian cinema or Asian American cinema. And I think it's really gotten a strong response from people. So I'm happy about that. And also a strong response from my family as well, which is a little bit dicey, controversial, a little bit challenging, but it it was my cousin's story, and he told me that he wanted it out there. So with his blessing, I was really happy that to be able to share a story.
Yes,
Well,
same here. Everybody that I've shown it to has just loved it, and it's like Chris said, it's a perspective that we haven't seen before. That prejudice doesn't just come in white, white and black. So we can see it from a different perspective. So it's refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy, how about for you, Malcolm?
The response has been really good, really good. We've had a lot of people that just have sent me like full essays about why they really enjoyed it, and I think the reason why we wanted to make it, and I think why a lot of us wanted to make films like these, is because we wanted to tell other people that there's other people who feel the same way. And I think like what a lot of people are looking for, especially these days, is that like that sense of connection, that someone else can understand your point of view. And I think like that's one simple thought, that like you know that another person gets you, means a lot to someone. And I think that's what affected us the most, is that when we made the film, there were a lot of people, because we felt it on set too, but there were a lot of people when we put it out to the world who like personally wrote to us and said that like, wow, like this is how I've been feeling. Like this made me feel something, and this made me cry, or this made me feel like this should be talked about. And I think that was been really great. And also I feel really thankful because it's inspired a lot of my other friends and a lot of the people on the set as well, who wanted to do something similar, who are now doing something similar, and are because they've seen that it's possible that we can do it. And yeah, I think it's just great, because it's just kind of like showing light to all of our communities that that this is possible, and that like it's okay to talk about your stories to people, and that you can be in the mainstream talking about these things and not get a lot of hate for, and people will watch because there there are people there to listen.
Mhm. Yeah. So we have another audience question that we're gonna put up. So this one is from, I guess, Delta Zhang. For all the filmmakers, what was the casting process like for your films, especially for Black Ghost Sun and having such a talented child actor and Muito Prazer with such a large cast? So I'll ask the filmmakers for Black Ghost Sun first. What was your casting process like?
I think I basically had open casting through a few different sources, but Kayvon, who played the son in my film, he was one of the first people to submit, and I loved his look. And when he came in to read, I just got lucky. It was probably his first or second time acting, and he was a natural. He's got a ton of charisma. And the person who played the father, Gary, was actually Tiffany's friend or coworker.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was we did the whole auditions, but Gary was always in the back of my mind. I was like, I think he would be good for it. And he's actually, this is his first, he's always ended up somehow on my film sets, but as like an extra or something. And I was like, you know what? Let's try him out. And he just he nailed it. He nailed it. And hopefully this is the start of a long acting career for him.
Yeah.
He did a great job. Yeah, we lucked out with our cast.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, the casting was. We had an open casting as well, and actually a lot of the faces that you saw were friends of friends. We looked because in the and this goes back to our whole point of like just having a primarily white industry, is when you go to like the regular casting routes, it's kind of hard to find talent because they're headed by primarily white people, and I think like that's usually what they're looking for, and especially in North America. So we just looked and reached within our own communities, and we found people. Even our DP was one of the talents on there. So it was just like we just talked to our friends and be like, hey, do you want to be on this piece? We're creating this piece. It's about race and identity and like finding yourself. And yeah, we source from our own communities.
Awesome. And for Jengil and Yusaku, if you could talk briefly about how you casted some of the roles in your film.
Japanese Brazilian, they were same classmate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't have any experience of acting.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we practiced a lot.
Yeah, so you just found Japanese, Brazilian, like actual students to cast.
Yes.
That's great. Wow. So unfortunately we are running out of time. So I'll ask this one last question, which is where are you going from here? Whether in this particular film or other projects. So I'll start with Chris and Tiffany, because I think I saw that you're developing a narrative feature for Black Ghost Sun. Is that right?
Yeah, we're developing Black Ghost Sun into a feature. Yeah. That's basically it. That's all I'm really focused on at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah. Jimmy, how about you?
I think the main point for me is just keep doing what I'm doing and make more pieces that include diversity. And I think it just naturally comes from the work that I make. And I'm also in the commercial space, so like and advertising is a big space. We're all consuming it every day. My hope and a lot of my own colleagues is that we're going to be able to bring those diverse perspectives into those worlds and work with those bigger brands and talk to them and show them that there's more to the world than just white. And yeah, I think that's the hope. There's also a ton of initiatives that I'm part of that we're pushing forward, developing grants, building up the community more, workshops and whatnot as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the Muito Prazer team, what are you all doing next? What are your plans?
We are just writing a new script. It's about Japanese Korean, but there is one big problem. money. You don't have any
All right, Tiffany, go to work. Use the time.
But yeah, we are working on it.
Okay, yeah, and we'll be sure to let everybody know where we can follow you all. If you want to mention real quick, like a shout out, if you can follow an IG or something like that, where people can find you.
Chris, you want to do the Black Book Sun IG?
Yeah, well, you can go at blackgosun, or go to chrislow.com or blackgosun.com.
あ、どこで
Jimmy?
Cool. You can just find me at Jimmy V on everywhere. JIMMYVI on Instagram, my website, Vimeo.
Yeah, and Jengil and Yusaku, where can people find you?
So we don't have any homepage, website yet. So maybe please write Muito Prazer and Japan, maybe.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. All right, well, that's all the time that we have. I want to thank all of our filmmakers for sitting down with us for this Q&A, and thank everybody for tuning in. Please check out all of their films. You can see them in our shorts program, which is available to rent until November 15th, this Sunday. Also, please tune in for the rest of PAF. We have a lot of live and streaming events throughout the rest of this week. With that, I'll say thank you and good night to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You say this kill, black and brown, and when will you talk about class in this story? The rest is allegory. Come together, unionize, see it through each other's eyes. No need to fight over supplies while workers save lives. They need protection too. What we gonna do? Organize our way through. And for those behind bars, we must fight hard. Global pandemic, endemic, systemic. No equality, no quality of life.